Welcome to Long Story Spoken.
Long stories, spoken simply.
Welcome back, power players and philosophy enthusiasts, to the grand finale of our series on the 48 Laws of Power here on Long Story Spoken. I'm your host, Katie. Still trying to reconcile the cutthroat brilliance of this book with my generally optimistic view of human nature? And joining me, as always, is our incredible guide through Robert Greene's world, Luke. Are you ready for the final stretch?
Absolutely, Katie. It's been a journey, hasn't it? These last 12 laws often feel like the culmination of everything that came before. They pull together many of the previous themes into a coherent, if still challenging, philosophy.
Indeed. And before we unveil these final, profound insights, a quick word to all our amazing listeners. If you've been intrigued by our discussions over these past few episodes, and you want to get your hands on the 48 Laws of Power yourself, or explore more of Robert Greene's compelling work, please remember to check out the description box below this video or in your podcast player notes. We've got links there for you. And using our affiliate links is a fantastic way to support Long Story Spoken and help us keep these deep dives coming your way.
Your support truly powers this podcast.
All right, Luke, this is it. The final 12 laws, from 37 to 48. I'm ready to have my mind truly blown. What's the first one that brings us to the finish line?
Law number 37. Create compelling spectacles.
This sounds like P.T. Barnum again, but perhaps on a grander scale.
It's absolutely an extension of the idea of courting attention, Katie, but it goes deeper into the psychological impact. This law states that appearance is everything, and mere reality is often insufficient to impress people. To truly capture hearts and minds, you must dazzle and distract with grand shows, dramatic gestures, and symbolic acts that appeal to emotions rather than reason. People are drawn to the dramatic, the sensational, the larger than life. By staging elaborate spectacles, you divert attention from unpleasant realities, elevate your image, and create an emotional resonance that builds a powerful following. It's about creating awe and admiration through performance.
So, it's about being a master showman or showwoman, using grand gestures to hypnotize and manipulate public perception. It sounds like something royalty would excel at.
Precisely. The book gives an excellent example with Louis XIV of France, again, who truly understood this. He was not only a powerful king, but a brilliant showman. He meticulously designed his entire court life, from the elaborate rituals of his daily awakening to the grand balls, operas, and festivals, as a continuous, compelling spectacle. The building of Versailles itself was an ultimate spectacle, a dazzling, awe-inspiring palace designed to humble visitors and reinforce his absolute power and divine right to rule. Even his military victories were celebrated with parades and elaborate ceremonies. These constant displays diverted the nobility from plotting against him, kept them fixated on his magnificence, and instilled a deep sense of respect and fear that cemented his authority. He wasn't just ruling, he was performing. Law number 38. Think as you like, but behave like others.
This sounds like the ultimate chameleon strategy, living a double life.
It is, Katie, and it's a crucial law for long-term power. It states that if you want to gain and maintain power, you must appear conventional and conformist to the prevailing norms and beliefs of your society. If you stand out too much with your radical ideas, your unique thoughts, or your unconventional behavior, people will become suspicious, feel threatened, and eventually turn against you. The trick is to think independently, to be critical, and to formulate your own strategies in private. But in public, you should blend in, adopt the common customs, and never display your originality in a way that causes discomfort. This allows you to operate unnoticed and avoid becoming a target.
So, be a wolf in sheep's clothing, essentially. Don't rock the boat outwardly, even if your mind is a tempest of unique ideas.
The book cites the example of Desiderius Erasmus, the great Renaissance humanist. In an era of intense religious and political upheaval, where expressing controversial opinions could lead to persecution or death, Erasmus was a master of subtle dissent. He held deeply progressive and critical views of the church and society, but he expressed them through satire, allegory, and scholarly texts that were carefully crafted to appear harmless or merely academic. He maintained cordial relationships with both Catholics and Protestants, never publicly aligning himself too strongly with either side. This outward conformity allowed him to publish his groundbreaking works and influence thought without being branded a heretic or a revolutionary, ensuring his survival and continued impact. Law number 39. Stir up waters to catch fish.
This sounds like creating chaos on purpose.
It's precisely about creating controlled chaos, Katie. This law states that anger and emotion are strategically counterproductive in the game of power. When you're angry, you lose control, make irrational decisions, and reveal your weaknesses. However, you can use the anger and emotions of others to your advantage. By provoking and deliberately stirring up the waters, irritating, frustrating, or angering your opponents, you make them lose their cool, react impulsively, and reveal their true nature or hidden intentions. In their emotional turmoil, they will make mistakes that you can then exploit. It's about manipulating their emotional state to reveal their flaws and gain the upper hand.
So, poke the bear, make them react, and then use their emotional outburst against them. It's like a psychological baiting technique.
Exactly. The book illustrates this with the tactics of many historical figures, including the French statesman Cardinal Richelieu. Richelieu was a master at remaining calm and composed, while constantly provoking his enemies into impulsive acts. He would issue decrees, make pronouncements, or engage in negotiations in a way that subtly infuriated his opponents, causing them to make rash countermoves. For example, he might intentionally present an insultingly low offer in a negotiation, knowing it would anger the other party and lead them to reject it outright, revealing their inflexibility, which he could then exploit to his advantage in the larger political game. He never showed emotion, but he was a master at stirring it up in others to cloud their judgment and expose their vulnerabilities. Law number 40. Despise the free lunch.
This sounds like if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
It's exactly that, Katie, and it's a crucial lesson in self-preservation and avoiding manipulation. This law states that anything offered for free comes with a hidden cost, a psychological obligation, or a subtle trap. There is no true free lunch in the world of power. Gifts often come with strings attached, favors demand repayment, and seemingly generous offers can conceal insidious intentions to control or obligate you. To maintain your independence and avoid being subtly enslaved, you should be wary of anything given without a clear price. Instead, it is always better to pay your own way, to exchange fairly, and to be in control of your own transactions.
So, beware of Greek-sparing gifts. Always assume there's an agenda behind generosity. And always be prepared to pay your own way.
Precisely. The book gives the example of the legendary art collector and dealer, Joseph Duvant. He was known for his incredible salesmanship and his ability to persuade even the wealthiest American industrialist to buy European masterpieces. Duvant understood this law implicitly. He would never offer truly free advice or seemingly simple favors without subtly establishing an obligation. If a potential client admired a painting he owned, Duvant might generously offer to lend it to them for a period, knowing that having the masterpiece in their home would create an emotional attachment and a sense of indebtedness. This free loan inevitably led to the client feeling compelled to purchase the painting, often at an exorbitant price. The perceived free lunch was actually the bait for a very expensive trap. Law number 41. Avoid stepping into a great man's shoes.
This is about creating your own legacy, isn't it?
Absolutely, Katie. This law warns against the immense difficulty and often tragic consequences of trying to follow in the footsteps of a truly great and celebrated predecessor. If you try to replicate their achievements or embody their persona, you will constantly be compared to them and almost always found wanting. Their shadow will loom large, making your own accomplishments seem lesser. To gain your own unique power and establish your own legacy, you must forge your own path, find your own niche, and achieve greatness in a way that is distinctly yours. Avoid inheriting their problems or being defined by their past glories. Create your own.
So, don't try to be the next big thing after a legend. Be the first you. Find your own lane.
Exactly. The book provides a powerful historical example with the sons of Philip II of Macedon, most famously his successor, Alexander the Great. While Alexander himself was brilliant and forged his own path, the law specifically points to the difficulties of those who tried to follow him. His generals, the Diadochi, spent decades fighting over his vast empire. none truly able to fill his shoes or command the same universal loyalty and genius. Conversely, the more relevant example from the book is that when a brilliant leader dies or leaves, their successor often struggles because they are constantly measured against the predecessor's greatness. For instance, when talented Roman emperors died, their less capable successors often failed because they tried to emulate the previous emperor's policies or style instead of finding their own unique way to rule. It's almost impossible to live up to a myth, so create your own. Law number 42. Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter.
This sounds like targeting the leader directly.
It's precisely that, Katie, and it's a very direct and often brutal law of power. This law states that trouble in any group, organization, or movement almost always stems from a single, strong leader, the shepherd. If you try to fight the entire group or address all the individuals causing problems, you will waste immense energy and achieve little. The most effective strategy is to identify the singular source of the problem, the leader who inspires or directs the opposition, and eliminate or neutralize them directly. Once the shepherd is removed, the sheep, the followers, will become disorganized, confused, and scatter, making them easy to control or defeat.
So, identify the head of the snake and cut it off. It's a highly targeted approach to conflict.
Exactly. The book gives a classic example with the Roman general and dictator Sulla. During a period of intense civil war, Sulla faced numerous rebellious factions and armies. Instead of engaging in protracted battles with every rebel group, he focused his military and political might on quickly identifying and eliminating their key leaders. For instance, after defeating a major opposing army, he executed all the enemy commanders and tribunes, but allowed the common soldiers to disperse. Without their leaders, the remaining forces dissolved, and their ability to organize further resistance was utterly destroyed. His strategy of striking the shepherds proved incredibly effective in quashing widespread rebellion. Law number 43. Work on the hearts and minds of others.
This sounds like persuasion and diplomacy, which is a bit softer than some of the previous laws.
It is softer, Katie, but no less powerful. This law states that while coercion and force can achieve temporary compliance, true lasting power comes from winning people's emotional loyalty and intellectual conviction. If you can work on their hearts and minds, appealing to their emotions, their deepest desires, their self-interest, and even their values, they will become your willing tools, obeying you, not out of fear, but out of genuine belief or affection. People who follow you because they want to are far more reliable and effective than those who follow you because they have to. It's about seducing them into your orbit.
So, it's about charisma, inspiration, and building genuine connection, or at least the appearance of it, to gain devoted followers.
Precisely. The book highlights the methods of Joan of Arc. She was not a military general trained in tactics, yet she inspired such fanatical loyalty and bravery in the French soldiers that they achieved incredible victories against the English. She didn't command through force or strategic brilliance in the conventional sense. Instead, she worked on their hearts and minds by appearing as a divine messenger, embodying their hopes for national liberation, and offering them a powerful spiritual cause. Her charisma and apparent purity inspired them to fight with unprecedented zeal, turning a demoralized army into an unstoppable force. She won their emotional and spiritual allegiance, which was more powerful than any strategic command. Law number 44. Disarm and infuriate with the mirror effect.
This sounds incredibly clever, like using someone's own reflection against them.
It's one of the most psychologically sophisticated laws, Katie. This law states that to disarm and infuriate your enemies, or to gain their trust, you should mirror their actions. When you do exactly what they do, in reverse, or with a slight twist, they become confused, disoriented, and often enraged because they don't understand your motives. It makes you unpredictable and impossible to pin down. If you mirror their values, their arguments, or even their physical mannerisms, you can lull them into a false sense of security or infuriate them by mocking their behavior. It's a powerful way to control their reactions without revealing your own hand.
So, mimic them, reflect their behavior back at them, and it messes with their heads. It's like psychological warfare through imitation.
The book offers a fascinating historical anecdote with the Chinese philosopher and strategist Sun Tzu. He advocated using tactics that confused the enemy by mirroring their expectations, then subverting them. A more direct example involves a 19th-century diplomat, Prince Metternich, who dealt with a particularly verbose and argumentative Russian envoy. Instead of directly confronting the envoy's long speeches, Metternich would simply repeat the envoy's own arguments back to him, sometimes in a slightly different tone or with an added subtle nuance. This drove the envoy to distraction, as he felt his words were being twisted or mocked, yet he couldn't accuse Metternich of anything specific. This mirroring infuriated him and made him vulnerable to Metternich's own subtle maneuvers. Law number 45. Preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once.
This sounds like good leadership advice for managing transitions.
It is, and it's critical for avoiding backlash when in power. This law states that while you must always talk about progress and the need for reform, because appearing forward-thinking and responsive to change is crucial for maintaining relevance and winning followers, you should never actually implement too many radical changes too quickly. Humans are creatures of habit. They fear the unknown and resist sudden upheaval. If you reform too much, too fast, you will destabilize everything, create chaos, and provoke widespread resentment and resistance. The powerful leader inspires hope for change, but implements it incrementally, slowly, and in a way that minimizes visible disruption, giving people time to adapt.
So, talk a good game about transformation, but make sure you apply the brakes slowly. A slow boil, not a revolution.
The book cites figures like Napoleon who, despite being a revolutionary leader, understood this. After seizing power, he didn't immediately dismantle all existing structures. He preached radical change and a new order, but his reforms, like the Napoleonic Code, were implemented gradually, often building upon existing legal frameworks. He understood that while people wanted change, they also craved stability. Had he attempted to overhaul everything overnight, he would have faced massive, unmanageable resistance. He managed the illusion of swift progress while ensuring the actual implementation was slow enough to be absorbed, without causing widespread panic or rebellion. Law number 46. Never seem too perfect.
This is another one that feels very counterintuitive. Don't we want to project an image of flawlessness?
You'd think so, Katie, but this law reveals a subtle danger of perceived perfection. It states that appearing too perfect, too flawless, or too lucky can actually be dangerous. Why? Because it inevitably breeds envy and resentment in others. People resent those who seem to have it all, and they will subtly, or even overtly, work to undermine them. To avoid becoming a target of envy, you should occasionally display a harmless flaw, admit to a minor vice, or make a calculated, insignificant mistake. This makes you seem more human, more relatable, and less threatening, deflecting envy and making your brilliance more palatable.
So, show a little vulnerability, a little imperfection, just enough to seem approachable and prevent others from actively hating you for being too good.
Exactly. The book provides the example of the legendary Greek statesman Pericles. He was incredibly gifted, eloquent, and successful, leading Athens during its golden age. However, to avoid the intense envy that his perfection might have otherwise provoked, he occasionally indulged in a mild, harmless extravagance, though he was generally austere. This slight imperfection made him seem more human and less like a god, deflecting the envy that could have led to his downfall. In contrast, someone like the brilliant architect Ictinus, who designed the Parthenon, was later ostracized by the Athenians, partly because his perfection left no room for others to feel superior or useful, breeding resentment. Law number 47. Do not go past the mark you aimed for. In victory, learn when to stop.
This is about avoiding hubris, isn't it?
It's absolutely about avoiding hubris, Katie, and it's a critical lesson for anyone who achieves significant power. This law states that the moment of victory is the most dangerous. In your euphoria, it's easy to overreach, to push your luck, to demand too much, or to extend your power beyond its natural limits. This will inevitably create new enemies, exhaust your resources, and lead to an eventual downfall. The powerful person knows exactly when to consolidate their victory, to retreat slightly, and to avoid pressing their advantage too far. Victory is sweetest when it's well managed and contained. Pushing beyond that invites disaster.
So, know when to quit while you're ahead. Don't be greedy, and don't assume your winning streak will last forever.
Precisely. The book gives a powerful example with Hannibal Barca, the Carthaginian general, after his overwhelming victory against the Romans at the Battle of Cannae. It was one of the most decisive defeats in Roman history, and Hannibal had the opportunity to march on Rome. However, he hesitated, or perhaps understood the impossibility of besieging such a large, fortified city with his exhausted forces, or simply thought it was too much of a risk. But the law emphasizes the danger of pushing too far. A better example might be the downfall of Napoleon Bonaparte, who, after conquering much of Europe, pushed his luck too far with the disastrous invasion of Russia, ultimately leading to his demise. He went past his mark, and his immense victory turned into ultimate defeat. Law number 48. Assume formlessness.
This sounds like the ultimate conclusion, the master strategy that encompasses everything.
It is the ultimate law, and it truly encapsulates the spirit of the entire book. This law states that by taking on a fixed form, by being predictable, by having a clear structure or an obvious plan, you become a target. Your enemies can then identify your weaknesses, anticipate your moves, and ultimately defeat you. To be truly powerful, you must be fluid, adaptable, and constantly changing. Be like water, shapeless, unpredictable, flowing into and out of any form. This means avoiding rigid ideologies, fixed plans, or visible patterns. Be a mystery, be adaptable, and be able to shift your strategy at a moment's notice, making you impossible to grasp or defeat.
So, be utterly unpredictable, constantly evolving, a moving target that no one can ever pin down. It's the ultimate defense through fluidity.
Exactly. The book references the philosophical concept of Taoism, where water is the ideal, soft, yielding, yet powerful enough to wear away stone. In historical terms, while no single person can perfectly embody pure formlessness, the most successful figures have had elements of it. Think of the unpredictable, fluid movements of guerrilla warfare, which can defeat a much larger, more rigid army. Or in business, companies that can constantly reinvent themselves, pivot, and adapt to changing markets are the ones that survive and thrive, while those with rigid structures often fail. The truly powerful person never settles into a single, identifiable form. They are constantly shape-shifting, always able to surprise, and thus always able to maintain their advantage.
Luke, that was a journey. From never outshine the master to assume formlessness. This book is an absolute masterclass in human nature, strategy, and power dynamics, even if some of the advice is, shall we say, morally ambiguous.
It truly is, Katie. It's a book that forces you to look at the world differently, to see the hidden currents of power that often go unnoticed. It's not necessarily a guide on how to be, but rather a guide on how power operates.
And that's an invaluable lesson for anyone in any walk of life. Whether you're trying to climb the corporate ladder, understand world leaders, or just navigate everyday social interactions, these laws provide a unique lens. Thank you, Luke, for guiding us through the 48 Laws of Power. It's been an incredibly thought-provoking series.
My pleasure, Katie. It's always a privilege to dive into these fascinating works with you.
And to all our amazing listeners who've joined us for this epic 4-part series, thank you so much for tuning in. We truly hope you found these discussions as insightful and engaging as we have.
If you want to revisit any of these laws or get your own copy of the 48 Laws of Power, remember to check the description below for our affiliate links. Your support means the world.
And finally, before you go, please take a moment to hit that like button if you enjoyed this episode. Share it with your friends, your family, or anyone who needs a crash course in power dynamics. And most importantly, subscribe to the Long Story Spoken channel to make sure you don't miss any of our future deep dives into fascinating books and topics. Your likes, shares, and subscriptions truly help us grow and keep bringing you these conversations.
We love having you with us.
Until next time, stay powerful, stay vigilant, and keep those minds curious.